while the entire world was glued to one spot on the map, where a bloody drama was unfolding, the real blow was being prepared somewhere else entirely. Ukrainian generals were staring at Pokrovsk. Western analysts were writing about Pokrovsk. Zelensky was talking about Pokrovsk, and no one noticed a trap of an entirely different magnitude snapping shut right behind their backs. A trap that could decide the outcome of the entire war. What happened on November 8th, 2025 will go down in the textbooks as a classic example of strategic deception. But let's break it down. I'm Alexei Kovalev, and tonight we're dissecting the operation that Kiev would prefer everyone to ignore. Yesterday, November 8th, the head of the Kiev regime, while ceremoniously awarding another batch of heroes in front of the cameras, pathetically declared that the armed forces of Ukraine, AFU, are Pokrovsk. What exactly they're holding it with is a mystery even to their Western allies. Maybe they're holding on to a handle, or maybe just a phantom hope. No one knows for sure, because even the Western media, which just a week ago was marveling at the incredible resilience and unbreakable spirit of the Ukrainian units in this area, suddenly and in perfect unison, as if on command, deflated. All at once, they began to insist that the fall of Pokrovsk is now inevitable, a matter of days, not weeks. Particularly noteworthy was the German TV channel ZDF, which bewilderedly told its viewers something amazing. I quote, G's quote 1. And then, get this. The Germans suddenly suggested that the reason might be the Hadiyu quote 2. You don't say. What a revelation. Of course, it's possible that Western analysts are just slow on the uptake, because they're all worried about something that has already happened. The facts on the ground have long since outpaced their concerns. According to information from representatives of the DNR leadership, Ukrainian units have lost their last chance to leave Krasnoarmysk, because the armed forces of the Russian Federation have blocked all escape routes from the city. This isn't a forecast. It's a statement of fact. Judging by the latest reports directly from the line of contact, Russian troops have entered the village of Rivne, the last grey area around the city, after which two cauldrons were formed, one in Krasnoarmysk itself and another in Myrnohrad, also known as Dimitrov, where a significant part of the remaining Ukrainian soldiers had retreated. In military terms, the AFU grouping in Donbas is in an operational encirclement. There is no chance of breaking out of these cauldrina. The head of the AFU General Staff, Natov, stated that there will be some decisions regarding Pokrovsk, but this no longer matters. Not at all. According to Western military experts, the same ones who were singing songs about the unbreakable defense just yesterday. After the cleanup of Krasnoarmysk and Dimitrov, wide operational possibilities open up for the Russian army in this direction. Thanks to the terrain and the thinned-out structure of the AFU's defences further west, advancement will become significantly less costly. Logical, understandable, predictable. However, it turned out that the plans of the Russian General Staff might have been completely different. In fact, everything turned out to be completely different. The first warning sign for those who know how to read between the lines of Ukrainian hysteria came from the completely epileptic lamentations of Verkhovna Rada deputy Mariana Bezukhla, a scandalous character, slippery, but at the same time informed. When she has a public meltdown, it's always a signal. It means things are really bad upstairs in the Kyiv headquarters. And this time, Bezukhla did not disappoint. She stated verbatim that the Russians distracted our generals with a breakthrough at Dobropilya, then used this to advance on Pokrovsk, and when the generals' attention was focused on Pokrovsk, they carried out a breakthrough deep into the south of the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. Well, let's hear more about that. This isn't just another complaint from a disappointed deputy about incompetent command. This is an open admission of a systemic, fundamental failure. Bazula, without meaning to, described a classic three-phase strategic deception operation. Phase 1, Dobropilya, a diversionary strike. The appearance of a serious breakthrough is created on one sector. The Ukrainian command focuses its attention and begins to transfer reserves. Phase 2, Pokrovsk. The main diversionary maneuver. A build-up of pressure on a more important direction, or so it seems. Media hysteria, heroic defense. All eyes are glued to Krasnoarmysk. The generals are completely absorbed in trying to hold a strategically important hub. Phase 3. The true breakthrough to the south. While everyone is watching Pokrovsk, weakened, exhausted units are left in the southern direction, deprived of reserves and command's attention. The Ukrainian generals were led by the nose with successive diversionary strikes. Methodically, calculatingly, ruthlessly. And the funniest part is that Western experts also suddenly discovered their gift of foresight, belated foresight. They suddenly started writing that the true goal of the Russian armed forces was not a strike through Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad towards Kramatorsk-Sloviansk, as everyone thought, but a breakthrough to Dnipropetrovsk, which, I quote, how to quote, Shatisks. It could be. Seriously? It could. But what exactly is happening there? Why is the Dnipropetrovsk direction so critical? And, most importantly, how did everyone miss the main blow? To understand the true scale of what is happening, you need to grasp the fundamental difference between the two offensive directions, Donbass and Dnipropetrovsk. These aren't just different sections of the front, they have fundamentally different strategic consequences. Let's start with Donbass. With that same Pokrovsk, they are so, quote 7. The loss of the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it will severely weaken the Ukrainian armed forces. But it will not collapse their defense overnight. The enemy can fall back to prepared lines. The fortifications, built over years, aren't going anywhere. The defensive lines will hold. The war will continue. Slowly, exhaustingly, but it will continue. It's a tactical and operational victory. Important, significant, but not decisive. Now, the Dnipropetrovsk direction. This is a completely different ballgame with completely different consequences. First, the destruction of AFU logistics. Dnipropetrovsk is not just a large city. It is the central transport hub through which the entire eastern grouping of Ukrainian troops is supplied. Railway lines, road communications, warehouses, transit bases. Russian control over this city paralyzes supplies, completely, irrevocably. Second, a geostrategic breakthrough. The liberation of Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia opens a direct path for the Russian army into central Ukraine. The possibility of reaching Transnistria emerges, which means cutting Kiev off from the industrial south and depriving the regime of access to the Black Sea. Ukraine becomes a landlocked enclave without access to ports, without an industrial base, without resources. Third, bypassing fortified areas. While the Ukrainian command spent years building layered defences in Donbass, the southern line was not designed to take the main blow, because the main forces, the reserves, the best units were all drawn to the PR directions, like Pokrovsk. What remained in the south were secondary units. The density of defense is critically low. Western sources state outright the remaining units in the south are suffering heavy losses. They have nothing to plug the gaps with. The reserves are trapped in the cauldrons near Pokrovsk. Transferring reinforcements is impossible. The enemy is moving too fast. It's a perfect situation. While the Ukrainian command was patching holes in Donbas and reporting on the heroic defense of Pokrovsk for Western media and domestic propaganda, the Russian army was methodically chewing its way to where it truly matters strategically. Not where it's loud, but where it's important. And the most terrible thing for Kiev is that this realization came too late. The degree of panic in the Kiev corridors of power can be measured by the statements of Volodymyr Zelensky himself. Yesterday, November 8th, he effectively admitted the inevitable, quoting Jikaz, quote, or 9. Openly, publicly, without mincing words. True, Zelensky tried to find some bright side to this. In his opinion, the fall of Pokrovsk might watati quote ku atin. Because, you see, Putin wants to watjad quote 11 and hananda quote 12 tav. The absurd logic of a desperate man. Pokrovsk no longer matters. The main event is happening to the south. But Zelensky has to somehow explain to his Western handlers why everything is going off plan. And what about Trump? Oh, Trump is in the sunniest of moods. At a meeting with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, which took place against the backdrop of news about the closing cauldrons in Donbas, the US President-elect was laughing heartily. Laughing at Orban's joke that Ukraine can only win the war by a miracle. Then Trump suddenly stated that a meeting with Putin, get this, always has a chance, and that the Ukrainian conflict will end in the near future, and that significant progress has been made in resolving the Ukrainian conflict. Trump sees the real picture on the front. He understands that negotiations are only possible after Russia achieves its goals. And Ukraine is losing its negotiating position with every day, every hour, every cauldron. The West is getting ready to cut Kiev loose. True, there is one small nuance. According to Trump himself, there is only one reason preventing negotiations. The Russian army just doesn't want to stop. Indeed, it doesn't. Now, let's break down the mechanics of the strategic deception step by step, methodically, because there is something to be learned here. The principle of multi-layered diversion is not new in the art of war, but the Russian General Staff applied it with surgical precision and under the modern conditions of total informational transparency. Phase 1. Dobropilya, the first diversionary strike. Active combat operations in this area create the appearance of a serious breakthrough. The Ukrainian command concentrates its attention on it. The transfer of reserves begins. Western military experts start writing analytical materials specifically about this direction. The media draws maps with red arrows. Everyone is looking there. Phase 2. Pokrovsk, the main diversionary maneuver. Russian troops increase pressure on what seems to be the more important direction. Krasnoarmysk becomes a symbol. A massive transfer of Ukrainian reserves from other parts of the front begins. The media hysteria reaches its peak. Heroic defense, strategic importance, unbreakable spirit. All eyes, absolutely all, are glued to Pokrovsk. Zelensky needs a picture for the West. The generals need reports on holding positions. Western journalists need heroic stories. Everyone gets what they want. And the Russian General Staff gets what it needs. diverted attention and a weakened defense on the true direction of the main blow. Phase 3. The southern breakthrough. The true strike. While the entire Ukrainian General Staff is focused on Pokrovsk, in the south, in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, only the second echelons, the weakened units, remain. Units staffed on a leftover basis. Russian troops methodically chew through the defense without much noise, without media coverage. The lack of press attention works in their favor. The enemy doesn't realize the scale of the threat until the last moment. By the time Kiev finally understood what was happening, it was too late. The reserves are in cauldrons. Logistics are paralyzed. Time has been lost. The psychology of the Khan is simple and effective. The Ukrainian command saw what it wanted to see. Political pressure demanded they hold Pokrovsk for PR before their Western allies. Military logic was sacrificed for political interests, and the Western backers were fed the exact picture they wanted to see: heroic resistance, stubborn defense, resilience. Everyone was happy, except for those who ended up surrounded. The Kiev generals made a classic textbook mistake. They started to believe their own propaganda. And when a military command starts tailoring its operations to fit a PR narrative instead of the real military threat, the result is predictable. It's fatal. Let's look at the current situation on the front as of today, November 9th, 2025. In the Pokrovsk direction, the picture is as follows. 2 cauldrons, Krasnoarmysk and Myrnorad. The surrounded grouping is cut off from normal supplies. Ammunition is running out. Fuel is practically non-existent. Medical supplies are dwindling. Any attempts to break out are doomed. Russian troops control all escape routes. The cleanup of these cauldrons is a matter of days. A week at most. The math of war is merciless. But the main event isn't happening there. The main event is in the south. According to Western sources, the same ones now panicking about the breakthrough, Russian troops are right now bypassing the southern defensive line of the AFU. The density of the Ukrainian defense in this sector is critically low. The reserves are in Pokrovsk, in the cauldron. Transferring reinforcements is physically impossible due to the pace of the Russian offensive. The offensive tactic is extremely rational. Russian troops are avoiding frontal assaults on well-fortified resistance hubs. Instead, they are bypassing them. Weak spots in the defense are identified. Strikes are made on the enemy's logistical communications. Operational breakthroughs are created deep into the defenses. The state of Ukrainian defense in the south can be described in one word: critical. The remaining units are taking heavy losses. There are no reserves to plug the gaps. Demoralization is growing from the realization of the scale of the strategic failure. In the Ukrainian command, it seems, panic has set in. Western military analysts, who just yesterday were confidently drawing up scenarios for the conflict's future, are today shrugging their shoulders in confusion. One of them wrote plainly, "It is difficult to understand the logic of the Ukrainian command, but the logic of the Russian General Staff is crystal clear. While the enemy was watching one hand, the other hand was landing the punch. Now, for the consequences, because what we are observing are not just tactical successes on separate parts of the front. These are events of strategic magnitude. On the military strategic level, the picture looks like this. For the Ukrainian defense, the loss of the Pokrovsk grouping is a tactical, at most operational, loss. Painful, sensitive, but not fatal. But the breakthrough to Dnipropetrovsk is a strategic catastrophe. It's the collapse of the entire defense system in the south. It's the impossibility of stabilizing the front because there are no reserves, logistics are paralyzed, and the pace of the Russian offensive leaves no time for regrouping. For the Russian offensive, operational space is opening up. The opportunity arises to develop success in several directions at once. Access to the enemy's key transport communications, creating the preconditions for the encirclement of large AFU groupings in the central and eastern regions. On the political level, the consequences are no less significant. For the Kiev regime, this is a failure of strategic planning at the General Staff level. It is confirmation that political PR is being placed above military expediency. It is a loss of trust from their Western backers, who are beginning to understand that they are pouring money and weapons into a bottomless pit. It narrows the room for maneuver in any future negotiations, because they will be negotiating not from a position of strength, but from a position of catastrophe. For the West, it is the realization of the futility of further military support. It is the search for a so-called "20" from the Ukrainian project. It is growing fatigue from endlessly financing a conflict that, as is becoming obvious, has been lost. The lessons of this operation will be studied in military academies. The Russian General Staff has conducted a masterclass in strategic deception, a classic multi-phase operation of diverting attention where each blow prepared the next. And the true goal remained in the shadows until the last moment. By the time the enemy realized what had happened, it was too late. The outcome is decided. The key conclusion from all this is extremely simple. Pokrovsk was not a miss by the Russian command. It was brilliant bait, juicy, appetizing, and seemingly strategically important. And the Ukrainian command swallowed it whole, hook, line, and sinker. While Zelensky reports on the "21", recording another video address from his bunker, the South is collapsing in a way that is unrecoverable and irreversible. While Western analysts write lengthy articles about the defense of Krasnoarmysk, the Russian army is deciding the outcome of the war in the Dnipropetrovsk region. In war, the winner isn't the one who shouts the loudest about their successes. The winner is the one who quietly does their job. Kyiv was shouting about Pokrovsk. Moscow was quietly taking the Dnipropetrovsk direction. Right now, on November 9th, 2025, we are witnessing the turning point of the entire campaign. What happens in the coming days and weeks in the South will determine the configuration of the future world. Follow the developments here on the Alexei Kovalev channel. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because what we are watching right now is history in real time. This was Alexei Kovalev. Until next time.